The wind brushed through my hair, softly like the hands of a saucy minx. My hands gripped the steering wheel, like the hands of a leathery but nonetheless saucy minx. I'm sitting in a chair. Its minx-like qualities are debatable, but nonetheless saucy. The saucy minxes have realized I'm cheating on all of them and have begun a raucous brawl, because I've completely lost track of this metaphor. But I'm fighting my own battle, and it's coming from within. The 14 cans of expired original Peach 4 Loco riding shotgun with me are wreaking havoc on my insides. My heart isn't necessarily beating anymore. I'm kind of just letting the blood do what it wants. My suffering isn't without purpose, though. Just like Jesus, I'm on a mission from God, and to quit now would be disrespectful to me and disrespectful to Jesus. I'm on the hunt for that one last big case, the one that's eluded me for so long. The boys down at the station are trying to get me to stop. They're telling me I don't have to do this, that the case was closed years ago, that I'm not a cop anymore. Like I believe that. Nothing is going to stop me from finishing this case. Roadblocks, car-shaped roadblocks, Target storefront-shaped roadblocks. If they could have stopped me, they would have already. Let me be the first to welcome you to Balon Day 2025! We're finally back again for my yearly campaign to be the #1 Balon tuber, a throne I will protect like it's my goddamn birthright. Tell me who else is still talking about this game, and I'll show you a dead man. You might have noticed I've kind of exhausted all Balon content there is. Balon Wonderworld was not a success, and all it has to its name is the game itself, the book, some trailers, and pre-release material. The biggest thing I have left to cover is the collector's edition. Dude, we could talk about the box, open the box, take stuff out of the box. That's 3 years right there! Well, if anybody was gonna find a way to talk about Balon again, it was going to be me. And the idea that I had mirrors a thought that everybody has when they first play Balon Wonderworld. I want this to fucking be over with already. For Balon Day 2025, we're gonna be looking at Balon Wonderworld Speedrunning. That's right, just like any other platformer, no matter how bad it is, Balon has a scene dedicated to finding out everything there is to know about the game in order to finish it as fast as possible. Is it the most developed and labbed out speed game of all time? Like, are people smudging discs and leaving the console on a hot plate to get a better time? No, but that just means there's plenty of more stuff left to be discovered. Across a normal playthrough, you'll probably discover a lot of the techniques in the game used in an optimized speedrun. And that's gonna be enough to get you thinking, maybe I could actually pull this off. Balon is a very simple game. But through both its structure and mechanics, there are ways for players who want to push it past the breaking point. But I will humbly admit, hat in hand, that I am not the single best person to talk about this. I'm not a speedrunner. I've never done a speedrun of Balon. And watching people who have made it clear that the gulf in ability is not something I can close in such a short space of time. So I thought, if you can't beat 'em, join them. All right. So question 1. Just who the hell do you think you are?
Who the hell do I think I am? Well, I'm Chiron. I would argue that I'm the best damn Balon speedrunner there is.
I apparently am the Balon speedrunner. I kind of like breaking up the game as much as possible, just messing around with it. That's probably the best way to put it, I guess.
I'm just a regular gamer that's recently got into motorcycles, but also speedrunning, and yeah.
I'm just some dude who plays video games, man. I'm just some dude.
For this endeavor, I've contacted 4 of the 5 top-placing Balon speedrunners and talked to them about the game, the speedrun, and what exactly makes it special. I'll be including their comments and insight whenever necessary, as well as using it for the basis of my own discussion. I did play through the game again and applied a lot of the tricks that they taught me. This isn't the history of the Balon Wonderworld record. What this is an explanation of the Balon Wonderworld speedrun, its peaks, its valleys, and the tech needed to run it, the mechanics that make it an interesting speed game, and why I, and the runners of this game, think it's worth your time. With that, let's lay out the rules. This is going to primarily cover an any percent run of the game. So the run is from the first time you get control to when you get the final hit on Lance that ends the game. Between those 2 points, do whatever you have to. This is a bit of a misleading tag though, since the game requires 110 of its Power Star equivalent, statues, to be collected before you can challenge Lance. The mission is now, find the quickest way to collect 110 statues and get to the fight with Lance. If you're familiar with Balon at all, you can guess which 24 statues are eliminated off the bat. Just for the sake of saying it, Balon bout statues aren't even considered since they're boring and, more importantly, static. You can't speed up a cutscene, and the timing is so finicky on these sections that there is zero advantage to trying to collect these statues. And if you want to try to collect them after failing to get all excellence on the first go-around, you gotta go and beat the world boss again. I'm telling you right now, once we beat the boss, we never go back to a world. Starting the game in 1-1, and the first skip we perform is one that informs a lot of what we're going to be doing throughout the run. After getting Tornado Wolf, you're locked out of the rest of the level by this mirror that plays a cutscene showing you how a door works. It's a one-time cutscene, but it does eat up a fair bit of time that you can't really shave off anywhere else. So in order to skip it, you have to find a way to get to the rest of the level without using the mirror. It's possible to skip the cutscene trigger by jumping over the fence on the side and riding this super tiny bit of the environment over to the rest of the level. You can see, though, that it's at an angle and tapers off the further it goes. The bit closest to the platform you're on, the bit that a normal jump will be able to get you to, isn't thick enough to land on. How do you get to the landable bit then? Well, for that, we're going to have to do something called a coyote jump. Coyote jumps are named after those moments in Roadrunner cartoons when Wile E. Coyote would run off a cliff and only start to fall when he noticed he was off the ground. The idea behind it is that players are allowed a certain buffer between stepping off of a platform and losing control. A few tenths of a second where you're allowed to jump despite not having a floor beneath you. If you've ever been playing a platformer and made a last-second jump that you swear you were going to miss, it's likely thanks to Coyote Time you were able to land it. This isn't a mechanic unique to Balon, but it's one that Balon uniquely utilizes to structure its run.
The biggest piece of movement tech in Balon, weirdly enough, is, you've probably noticed this about the game, but it has infinite Coyote Time.
That's one other reason I went to it, because it looked easy. It looked easy, because I have not seen a game be that ridiculously easy. A coyote jump.
So it's where can you use coyote jumps in the most optimal places to, maintain speed.
For me, realizing that I could run off a ledge and hit jump a full second later and it would let me jump, it kind of opened my eyes to the movement in this game being a lot more than what it seems on the surface.
Balon has a very weird implementation of Coyote Time in regards to its other mechanics, like speed and the costumes you can use. Jumping in Balon Wonderworld is a momentum killer. You lose the speed you have going into a jump and then have to build it back up once you land. When people say that Balon is a slow game, this is one of those quirks that makes it that way. Coyote jumping, though, is the exception. Since you're making yourself airborne without using the jump, the momentum loss isn't applied, and you keep your speed if you jump after the initial fall. This alone is a small trick that adds up in a big way the longer the run goes on. Not the big, flashy world skips, but rather a small optimization that accumulates over time. Tornado Wolf is actually a great costume to practice this with, since its ability is a jump. And you can see the difference in speed from a regular jump versus a coyote one. In 1-1, you use this to skip some slow-moving platforms, since a coyote jumping Tornado Wolf is able to cover much more ground than a normal jump could. The second property that coyote jumps provide is better seen in the second costume of the level, Jumping Jack. On its own, Jumping Jack is already a decent costume. That little extra distance you get makes for a lot of opportunities to get to odd bits of the stage. The downside is that your little flutter jump doesn't go that far. But you're bound to notice as early as the base game that the longer you wait to use your flutter jump after falling, the further the distance it covers. This then gets you to mix a flutter jump with a coyote jump, and the difference is ridiculous. I have no idea how this works, but I'm guessing it's some sort of coding quirk where the distance of the flutter is equal to the speed on jump. And with coyote time acting as a sort of pseudo-jump, it makes up the difference and allows you to use a full-distance flutter jump that opens levels up way more. One of these skips is usable by the very next level, as the exit to 1-2 is directly in front of the entrance, just with a massive gap and wall in front of it that makes it impossible to pass. Impossible without jumping jack, that is. With a perfectly timed jump, you can just ignore the whole course and get to the end of the level as fast as you like. Apparently I didn't like it enough because there was a big 30-minute gap where I just couldn't land the trick to save my life. World record holder Chiron shared the sentiment since he published a guide on Balan Wonderworld speedrunning tricks that rates time saves on difficulty. And this 1-2 skip was the only one rated 5 stars. The world record holder has validated my inadequacies, and that's about as good as winning, so...
Yeah, it's trivial now because of the 30 FPS. I do need to update the guide, in all fairness.
Who the f*** asked you?
Okay, so, this is an odd quirk of Balon. Back in the demo to Balan Wonderworld, the jump height was different. You could jump higher and further, which led to tricks like the 1-2 skip to be possible. Balon Company, sensing fun, nerfed the jump to the level we see it now. This is true in every version of the released game except for 2, the PC and Switch versions. The jump height is tied to the frame rate, so on PC you're able to throttle the frame rate manually and force the game to 30 FPS from its normal 60 FPS. This returns the jumps to something closer to the demo's height and makes skips like this not just possible, but trivial. The Switch version of the game is locked to 30 by default, so if you don't want to mess around with the PC version, all you gotta do is play the absolute worst version of the game and you're set! Make sure to play it on Switch 2 for those faster load times and creeping sense of wasted money. Collecting 4 statues in the first level, and 1 more in the second, along with a secret costume, sets you up for the biggest double-edged sword in the run: boss fights. Boss fights in Balan Wonderworld are fairly simple and very forgiving. You're given all the costumes you'll need to damage the boss in 3 unique ways, which nets you an extra statue for each unique method. This is good, since it means you only need 1 statue in the second level to make 5 overall, with the 3 you get here making it 8. That 8 unlocks the next 2 levels where the run really opens up. The problem is that bosses are long and unskippable. Beating a boss requires 3 hits, but the bosses will often f*** around for a while as you sit out of range and are unable to do any damage. You're not allowed to fight the final boss without first clearing every stage's boss, so they act as these 12 totally unskippable roadblocks that eat up time no matter what. See, what the 4 assholes I talked to didn't tell me was that it's actually optimal to watch the dances after the fights. It loses you time, but seeing them makes me smile. With this, you're given a bit more room to breathe. You have the choice of going to World 2 or 3 next, and it's time to start ducking in and out. The first step from here is to go to World 3-2, since you get an extremely important costume here for the run. Dusk Butterfly is a costume with very limited applicability. The gimmick is that you're able to fly around, but only when it's dark out. Otherwise, it's the same as having no costume. It does have some quirks to it, namely that levels like World 9 take place exclusively at night, so you're able to fly around without having to turn off the lights. Cute, but we're not making it past World 2 with this thing. You can also collect a few statues, and here we get a piece of movement that is hard no matter the frame rate. You can get a statue at the very start of the level and save around 10 seconds at the price of some of the tightest timing in the game. You have to perfectly time the jump back to the platform using Jumping Jack in order to save time and avoid getting a costume like Pounding Pig for the sole purpose of burning it. It's not easy to get, but it is a world record caliber skip, so perform it at your own peril and don't be afraid to burn a costume to get it. The most important thing to get in 3-2, though, is Dusk Butterfly. The costume is absolutely vital because it allows you to get access to an actually good costume. There are 2, maybe 3 costumes that are absolute necessities for completing the run, and the first is grabbed early in 2-2 thanks to Dusk Butterfly. Hopping up to this platform with the broken chess blocks and mashing like your mother's heart just stopped and mashing will start it again nets you Double Jumper. No prizes for guessing what Double Jumper does, but you'd be correct in guessing it changes the game dramatically. 1 jump is good, 2 is unbeatable. Multiple gimmicks, like barriers that need to be teleported through or far-off platforms that require mirrors to access, are as simple as finding the right spot and jumping. This trick comes courtesy of the Japanese Balan speedrunning scene, with the ability to use Dusk Butterfly attributed to Penta0612. Before this, the routing required you to go all the way to World 4 and then come back, which was a massive time sink. Penta's discovery cut down on the time dramatically.
It was a Japanese runner, I think Penta 0612. I think he was the first who put it in a run. And I think his English isn't very good, so he didn't have very much communication with us. But we were, I think it was VG, looking at his videos, and he's like, "Hey, what is he doing here? This is wild." And then we tried it. We struggled to get it to work, but at 30 FPS it works, just barely.
Double Jumper makes quick work of the rest of 2-2, and after this, you can hop back over to World 3 and finish it off with a few interesting spots. There's a dark room that nets you a statue, but is in total darkness. You're supposed to grab the lantern costume to be able to see, but if you're bold enough, you can just use Double Jumper to hop over the path and grab it anyway. It's a literal leap of faith, though, so you better memorize where the blocks are. This, along with another secret costume, sums up World 3, which I'd say is the biggest roadblock for players in the early game. It's a pretty standard level to play for a casual playthrough, but a speedrun has tight spots, like the Jumping Jack statue and some Dusk Butterfly sections. By this point, you should have access to the second set of unlocked levels with World 4, 5, and 6. And I seem to have a minute to spare, let's talk about World 4. World 4 is bar none the shortest world in the entire game. You can start the first level by grabbing a trophy and using Dusk Butterfly for the last time. See, a couple different costumes have the ability to ride air currents. In this one, it's supposed to be the sheep power-up you use, but Dusk Butterfly also has the ability. By jumping off of the first big platform in the level into an air current that's meant to carry you over a small gap later in the level, you skip all the platforming, an enclosed section, and the mini-boss to collect an extra statue and end the level early. You're now able to move on to 4-2. 4-2 is now over. The gimmick of the level is that the end goal is on the back of this massive flying whale. And unlike a lot of other platformers, this whale is not a background element that you interact with at the end of the stage. No, the whale you see is the same whale that you need to land on. There's no flag that needs to be checked to make it into the end goal. That means that at any point during the level, you can land on the whale and end it early. You still need to collect some trophies, like one around a corner at the beginning, but after that, you're free to end the level whenever you want. This isn't the order you're going to be doing it for the run, since you actually save 4-2 until you've beaten the other 2 levels in its group, but I needed to show that the time it's taken me to explain the levels is longer than the time you spend in those levels. We're going to be talking about the next 2 levels out of order again. Usually you'd want to weave back and forth between them to collect costumes, but I feel like there needs to be an exception here. See, I had a list of questions I asked each runner when we talked, and there was one question that received the same answer every single time. It didn't matter how recently they had run the game, if they liked it, if they didn't, every time the answer was the same. What's the part of the speedrun that you just roll your eyes at and say, oh, hell, I gotta do this part again?
Yeah, that's probably one of the worst parts about the game. World 5.
It's the whole thing.
Just the whole thing. I hate World 5.
But it feels so awkward to do, and you're just jumping with no good visual cue, that I don't think anybody's actually put it into a speedrun.
So you have to jump off this box in such a way and land on this tiny branch with the slippery controls just to make it up here.
God. It's him and he's like Roger Rabbit drawn in Inspector Gadget, and they're sitting at a couch together, and he's playing Minecraft with Inspector Gadget. World 5, the Tree World, is a make-or-break point in the speedrun. One that even the world record holder has multiple complaints with. So the path forward seems pretty simple. The level is one of the game's most vertical, so double jumpers should make quick work of it. Well, we're not looking for quick, we want fast. So it's time to reveal another big part of Balan Wonderworld speedrunning.
Everything is interactable, everything's got collision. It's really interesting just to kind of see the different dynamics that you can get between each costume, I guess.
For some reason, the Balon company decided to add collision to almost every single part of a level. Objects acting as set dressing are really just platforms that haven't been clearly marked for you. That's how we were able to use Double Jumper to hop past the mini-boss door by jumping on a pirate ship, or how you can jump off the books in 3-1 to get past spider walls. There's no end to the tricks that you can pull off by using the environment to your advantage. But to use them properly, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. The consequence of everything having collision is that a lot of stuff does not want collision, and fights against you if you try to stand on it. Specific elements, for instance the balloons in this very stage you're supposed to use the chameleon costume on, have collision and you can stand on them. Consistently landing on them, and standing long enough to plot a course is a whole other issue. That's where this level in particular makes itself the best place to talk about this phenomenon. See, since World 5 is one giant tree, the branches of said tree will occasionally poke into the level, and, as you guessed, they have collision. The pathways provided by these branches are the key to gutting this level, cutting out massive portions of platforming and getting you to statues you would never be able to get to on a normal run. This means the optimal route to get through the level is to jump on these branches that are extremely thin, hard to land on, and will oftentimes boot you off simply because the game doesn't know what to do with you once you land on them. These branches are the key to shaving off a lot of time, but if you fail here, the run is dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hard speedrun. I guess the big challenge about the game is a massive drawback of the game itself is the fact that you lose a costume, you have to go back to that world to go get it. So essentially, if you take damage, the run is dead.
You lose double jumper, sorry, your run's dead. It sucks, but your run's dead. Try again.
Balan Wonderworld is a forgiving speedrun in that the execution of a lot of tricks is recoverable. Falling off of something usually lets you land on another platform, which is a time loss, but nothing you can't salvage. Costume losses, though? Absolute death. If you lose a vital costume like Double Jumper, the trek all the way back to 2-2 to get another one puts any chances of staying in the hour-long run range well out of reach. So a level full of jumps that are gonna make you fall off and lose Double Jumper is exactly the sort of thing that's responsible for a lot of run resets. However, the sprawling nature and multiple routes you can take thanks to the branches leads to a different problem. One that Chiron discussed with me, where it gives you too much hope. You can make it anywhere you want in the level by climbing branches. But once you actually get where you want to go, how are you going to get back to the goal? This evolved into him explaining the 9-second rule. Basically, if you want to leave the beaten path to get a statue, you have 9 seconds to grab it and get back. Any statue that takes longer shouldn't be considered, since it's just too much of a time sink. The example he gives is in this world with the first statue of 5-1. It's easy enough to get to the statue, but the process of getting all the way back is such a chore that it's easier to just make up the difference with a later statue. All of this comes together to make World 5 feast or famine. Either you put the whole run on the line to blitz through and abuse the game's weird level design, or you play it safe, get your statues, and leave feeling like a putz. Level 6 should be an easy one to describe, since it's where normal run MVP Aircat is found. What Double Jumper does for vertical movement, Aircat does for horizontal. Its ability to walk on air lets you access areas you'd never be able to get to, cross gaps no other costume could, and opens up levels even more than just Double Jumper did. You'd know all of this in the base game, but with the addition of Coyote Jumps, Aircat gets even better, along with the trick to mash at the end of the glide to get a bit of extra distance. All of this comes together to make Aircat indispensable. Once you have it, the rest of the level is cake. But then there's 6-1. The entrance to the rest of the level after the very start of it is locked off behind a door that can only be opened with gear prints. We have bounced around these levels and are recreating Looney Tunes bits to save time. What would make you think this would be a part of the plan? So instead, you have to use Double Jumper to sneak under the castle, which is hollow on the inside, hop across the gap with Aircat, and then walk into the loading zone behind the door, which transports you to the rest of the stage. The stage beyond is child's play, since the strategy doesn't get more complicated than double jumping, but the skip is still notable for just how ridiculous it looks, and how complicated it would even be to find out it existed if not for guides. Now is also a good time to bring up 100% speedruns, since this level is a key part of a 100% run. Here's all the facts you gotta know before starting a 100% run. One day, you will die, and there is a finite amount of time between that moment and the moment you choose to do this speedrun. At the end, all you will have is 12 less hours and the Balon costume. Don't do a 100% run. There is no interesting tech to the speedrun. There is no challenge. There is no fun. It tacks on 11 additional hours of begging and pleading your Tims to breed in the right way that you get the perfect Tim. This is an agonizing process that leaves you with nothing to show for it. No speed-ups, no tricks, nothing. And your prize at the end is a Balan version of the dancing baby gif. Yay! At this point, you should have the next set of levels available, and this goes from a speedrun to a hunt. Even casual players would do this because the costume we're after is easily the game's best, changing everything about the run and what we're about to accomplish. You rush to 8-1, ignore everything but the statues convenient enough to get while on the path, and grab Frost Fairy.
As soon as 789 unlock, you'd go to get Frost Fairy, because Frost Fairy is probably the best costume.
If I was making Balon Wonderworld, 8-1 would be the first level in the game.
And also like gear prints. We completely took gear prints out because we found out Frost Fairy can skip the door.
Of course it can.
Yeah. We found out, like, holy shit, you can actually use the stupid rocket costume to actually do the skip, and then we're like, holy shit, you could actually do it with Frost Fairy. like sometimes we found
it all comes back to Frost Fairy.
Exactly.
Frost Fairy is a strictly better Aircat and a massively worse Dainty Dragon. Along with the same ability to cross gaps and boost from Coyote Jumps, it also provides an elevation increase that makes for an easier time getting to new areas. Frost Fairy changes everything in terms of routing, as statues that might have been unobtainable with just Double Jumper and Aircat are now simple with Frost Fairy. Along with outmoding Aircat altogether, you'll also see that Double Jumper is starting to get sunset by this point. It's still an important costume, but by the time of the next batch of levels, you not only don't need it, you can't afford to keep it. Things are gonna get weird. It's also important to note that this is where a Switch run of the game officially becomes impractical, because Frost Fairy jumps are significantly worse at 30 FPS. So to get the most out of the game, you have to switch back to 60, which the Switch version can't do. We get to see just how strong Frost Fairy is, as the rest of 8-1 is a joke, with an additional 2 statues coming your way as long as you know how the costume works. If you want a real display of its abilities, 9-2 is the perfect showcase. This is a level that's meant to take place inside of a mansion, with you having to use a ghost costume to get around various hazards. But what if you spent no more than 5 seconds inside of the mansion and still beat the level? Thanks to Frost Fairy, you're able to skirt around the outskirts of the level, collect a single statue, and be done with it. The biggest challenge is not getting motion sick watching this tunnel at the end. 9-1, though, is a different story. 9-1's central gimmick is this train costume that allows you to run across invisible tracks. You're able to mess with the game a lot when it comes to crossing gaps, but everything has its limits, and 9-1 is ours. The gaps are enormous. No coyote jumping Frost Fairy button mashing could get you even close. It seems like this is it, but now is when Balan's collision on everything gets pushed to its absolute limits. While the train tracks don't spawn in unless you're wearing the costume, the train supports still appear. So, you think this would be easy, right? Because you're not paying attention and don't remember when I said how slippery some of the unintended platforming is. Well, it's not, because you can only land on the supports with scaffolding beneath them. The regular ones are intangible, and you phase right through them. So you have to Frost Fairy jump between these supports, with maybe a few frames before sliding off, one after another, while collecting statues. This is an easy run killer. Falling is extremely likely unless you've practiced this part to death, and there's always the chance your nerves will just get the best of you and you screw up. The level beyond is nothing special, but this section represents one of the biggest platforming hurdles in the game. A question I was really curious about with Balon was whether it was a routing-heavy run or an execution-heavy run. If you don't know what I mean, what I wanted to know was which was more important for a successful Balon run. Knowing which path to take to collect statues in the right order, doing levels in the right order, and knowing which costumes to collect and when, or the actual ability to pull that off. Tons of speedruns can fall into either category, and even more fall into both. And the consensus on Balon was that it's mixed, but more heavily weighted towards routing. The simple controls and busted costumes you get access to make up for a lot of the stress of gameplay, which leaves your main challenge to be shaving as much time as possible by finding the quickest routes. Sections like this, World 5, and what's coming up, though, make sure you don't get lazy and remind you there's still a major skill gap between the base game and a speedrun. All that's left after this is World 7, with not much to report. No vital costumes, no cool techniques, probably the most standard level in the whole run. I'll instead take the time to point out how important this level is for a co-op speedrun. The co-op speedrun for the game is less explored than the any % run and might be even crazier, with great potential for time saves that just haven't been discovered yet. Co-op in Balon works by having a link-up mechanic. Either the two players can run around independent, or link up to share abilities. And for some reason, among the abilities you share with your partner, is the ability to jump! So by default, linked-up players have 2 jumps, making it so you have Double Jumper by default for the whole run. That doesn't even include what happens if you add a costume to that, so once you have Frost Fairy, you literally become the best possible combo of costumes in the game, a double jumping Frost Fairy. If you want to play a speedrun that's complete chaos with loads of potential, Balon Co-op any % is the way to go. I mention it alongside World 7 because you get a costume here called Speedy Cheetah, that you think would have some applicability in the speedrun, but no. It being a burst-style costume that only occasionally has its power renders it as useless as the 70 other costumes we don't use in the run. In a co-op speedrun, though, this becomes Triple Jumper, or a double-jumping Frost Fairy that occasionally gets to go really, really fast. And if you remember how the gap in 9-1 was super difficult to pass in the main run, you'd be shocked to learn how easy it is with Speedy Cheetah equipped. 80 costumes in this game. Some combo of them has to be fun. Alright, now we're gonna get a little weird. Up until this point, a Balan speedrun for the most part has played Balan Wonderworld. It hasn't required the use and exploitation of glitches, aside from 6-1 and going under the castle. Instead, it's mostly been about using what's already built into the game and exploiting it as much as you can. These last 3 worlds, though, are completely different. These 3 feature the only prominent use of glitching in the whole run. That isn't just the game behaving weirdly because it's Balan Wonderworld. We're again going out of order of the actual run, but that's only because it's the only way we're going to be able to make sense of all this. So, World 10. This one switches things up by actually having us go to the first level first. And before we do, we have to wait for the only time in the run where the wardrobe gets used. Using the wardrobe to switch between previously collected costumes is such an unbelievable time loss that normally you don't even think about using it. That's why it's so important to not lose costumes or swap out ones you still need. We're here though, because we have to pick up 2 extra costumes we collected earlier that haven't seen use until now. Remember how back in World 1 and 3 I said we got secret costumes that we didn't use up until this point? Well, it's finally time to reveal them. First off is the World 3 costume, Itsy Bitsy Elf. This is a costume that is small. It can't do anything besides make its way into doors that are designed for it for like a drop or 2. But it turns out though it's actually one of the most important costumes for these last 3 levels. So, since Balan's world is filled with collision, there are actually advantages to having a body this small. Namely when it comes to doors. This was a strategy discovered by Silent, one of the runners I interviewed for this project, and it goes like this. By moving closely to certain doors using Elf, you're able to swap to a new costume and temporarily enter the door's model. Doing this disables the door's collision and allows you to slip through with no issues. While this normally isn't used in the run, due to the lack of doors it works on, as well as the impracticality of keeping Elf on you for the whole run, it comes up enough in the last few levels that you're going to want to keep it on you. Its use in 10-1 is to clip through the final door of the level that normally needs you to use Inky Blaster. By angling yourself in just the right way, that the game doesn't get confused, you're able to get past the door and finish the level. However, that doesn't really account for how you're going to be getting to that door in the first place. See, Inky Blaster is required for the entire level. Its ink shots open up doors that lead to mirrors that rotate the level so you can access new parts. Inky Blaster is a very good costume that even has a role in the run for an upcoming boss, but ultimately it's just too much of a time sink to consider. So instead, Silent found another workaround in the form of clipping out of bounds. This would reveal how the level actually worked, as instead of rotating itself like it appears, the level is actually 4 separate rooms that represent each of the rotated positions. This means that if you can get out of bounds, you can skip all of the 3 previous rooms, get to the 4th one, and then clip through the door. The only problem is, how do you do that? Well, we can get as far as using the elf clip to get yourself stuck in the roof, and beyond this is the ability to get free. Use elf to sneak back into the level, and then clip through the door. But you can't jump through the roof. It has collision, and if you try to switch back to another costume, you get stuck. Not double jumper, not frost fairy, nothing can get you through. Except hidden costume number 2. Bar none, the worst costume that is mission critical to the speedrun. Elastiplant is the 3rd costume you normally get in a playthrough with the ability to get taller. In a regular run, this has nearly no uses aside from some stupid simple trophies. In a run though, invaluable. The one thing that makes the 10-1 skip work. See, Elastoplant's power works in a really odd way. Once its timer runs out, instead of your head snapping down to your body snaps up to your head. This is a way to increase the height of your body without a jump, and is the only way to get yourself out of bounds this way. After this, yeah, the costume is trashed, but the record books don't say Elastoplant got used and instantly discarded. The record books will say Elastoplant got used, and that's way more than 70 other costumes can claim. 10-2, meanwhile, I would just consider to be a very well-executed version of a normal playthrough, landing on awkward environmental bits with Frost Fairy to invalidate the level design, and leave with a hefty few trophies and Inky Blaster, now that Elastoplant has outlived its usefulness. World 11 starts similarly enough to the last level, since you're just completing 11-1 like there's a 5-alarm fire in your house, but the statues have to get collected. But then comes 11-2. The level doesn't feature a massive skip, and that's kind of the problem. The gimmick is that you start next to the exit, but it's in a cage. You're supposed to go up to the upper levels and kill the mini-boss, which opens the door to douse the stage. Then you go back down and end the level. Being so close to the exit makes it seem like there has to be some way to end it early. Thanks to some cheats, we know that it's still an active exit door even in the cage, so clipping in would end the level instantly. As well, the only way to open the door being the death of the mini-boss means this is the only required mini-boss in the entire game. It's begging for a skip. This came up a few times in my discussion, specifically when I asked if Balan was a solved game. Was it a game that still had secrets and tech to be discovered, or was it solely down to execution at this point? Examples like this, and the ability to skip the Lance cutscene in 1-1, were given as examples of there being areas for innovation that simply haven't been found due to the game's relatively low player count. Rounding out the base game is World 12, which, before new routes were found, was a black hole at the end of the run. 12's defining gimmick is that it's slow and shitty. 12-1 is made up of 4 different auto-scroller sections, while 12-2 has a stage-ending platform ride and mini-boss that drags any momentum from previous skips to a screeching halt. Unlike most other levels in the game, these ones are incredibly closed in and cramped. There's not a lot of potential to jump around the stage when you're going through hallways. The new techniques needed to break these 2 levels were cataloged by Chiron in their own dedicated video going over how World 12 was broken. So if you want to learn more about them, you should check that out. The gist of 12-2 is that you can clip out of bounds during this tunnel section, using the room's rotation and a small outcropping on top of a door to force your way out. From there, it's Frost Fairy jumps and the barely used floating flower to make it all the way towards the end. But now you have to find a way back into the level. By complete accident, Chiron and Silent would discover that you could fall into a random, completely missable crack, jump as soon as your head clears a wall, and land on a platform that's just a bit too far down for Frost Fairy to go back to the main stage. Except it turns out that this corner, along with a few other ones in the game, randomly has the property to let you jump infinitely when you're next to them. This is basically a 1 in a million chance, and makes it so you can use Frost Fairy to fly back to the blocks, and finish the stage over 1.5 minutes faster than usual. 12-1, though, was the wall. This had 4 auto-scrolling segments, 2 absolutely mandatory. Frost Fairy shenanigans made the first 2 skippable, but after that, you just had to buckle up and play Balan Wonderworld. Speedrunners were working night and day to make sure that didn't happen. In order to skip the final 2 auto-scrollers, it was discovered you could sneak out of the third one because, for some reason, the door at the entrance only partially closes when the room rotates. Waiting at the entrance and slipping through gets you out of bounds, and then elf clipping your way through a door spits you out at the exit. If you want a full breakdown on how these tricks were found and how they work, please check out Chiron's video. With that, if you manage to stay on course, it should be time to go fight Lance. Though, if you're going for statue percent, you can call this a job well done. That one requires you to collect 110 trophies, but rather than beat the final boss, you just gotta get the message where Balan tells you gotta go back and beat the bosses. That means you're free to go get different statues rather than the boss ones, and saves you time in the speedrun that you would have spent fighting them. The current record, also held by Chiron, shaves over 20 minutes off of a real run. And after that, the Lance fight that follows is just kinda dull. You land your shots, take damage to go down to 1 costume, instantly kill yourself to speed up the forced loss, and then beat the boss as normal. Shout out to the boss being able to kill you by falling on you, that's cool. And that brings an end to the Balan Wonderworld speedrun. On average, this should take you around an hour and 15 minutes, but depending on your familiarity with the game, that can either go up or down. All the way down to an hour and 1 minute, discounting loading time. After doing the research and practicing the tricks, I think Balan's potential as a speed game is incredible. The game doesn't have a sexy movement option that lures you in, like a backwards long jump or bubble boosting, but what it has is the thrill of laying out a plan and executing it flawlessly. Watching a seasoned runner tackle the game is mystifying because it looks like there's a sixth sense at work. They're able to weave through levels and pick up statues you don't notice until they already have them. A lot of people who don't follow or understand speedruns will often accuse them of optimizing the fun out of games. That by doing them, they've ruined their ability to play the game normally, and it takes too much time. But in the case of Balan, I think it optimized fun into the game. Shaving away so much of the chaff of the game leaves you with a very fast, floaty, pseudo-puzzle game that tasks you with testing your reaction times against the game's weirdness. As far as games go, it's hard to think of one that plays quite like this, and for that, I think anybody with a passing interest in speed games should give it a shot.
I want more people to try this game. I want more people to mess around and try to find stuff. The routes through the game have changed a bunch of times just from one new discovery. So more people looking at the game, finding consistent ways to do some of the existing tricks that are like less consistent, like the jump in 3-2, that jump is nuts, would be great. More people experiencing this game and seeing that the speedrun's actually pretty cool, even if casually you might not like it. I think that's cool.
The ways that you press the button, I guess, is kind of like a fighting game in a way, where you're not always just holding the button down. You're kind of like tapping it, you're lightly tapping it, you're holding it, you're doing a mishmash of all these different things.
Yeah, whether I like it or not, it's like there's times where I hated the game when I was running it, and times where I love it. A lot of it, though, is I love the community. I love the people that I've met. I would say that I love them more than the game at the moment.
If you lose the record after this goes up, how would you feel?
I feel great.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done a proper speedrun of this game in 3 years, and part of that reason is there's just no competition at the moment. It'll just take that one person to come along and try and, or to beat me to go, okay, I'm down to try this again.
You hear that, guys? The world record holder doesn't even want that record. Go out there and get it! Of course, I don't plan on losing my own competition, so I'll be setting a brand new Balan Wonderworld Speedrun World Record asterisk right now! What's my time? Well, oh, that's not getting better.